Well, aloha and welcome everyone. It's 12 o'clock and we want to honor your time and the speaker's time. So we'll go ahead and get started. We expect others to join us along the way, and that's something we're also looking forward to. So this is our second annual Lunch and Learn speaker series, and we're glad that you're here with us and sharing this space with us. My name is Diane Bowen Coleman, and I'm the State Human Trafficking Abatement Coordinator with the Special Investigation and Prosecution Division of the Department of the Attorney General. I'm very excited to introduce our speaker today. It's Jordan Renfro, and Jordan is a program manager for the Teen Alert Program, or TAP 808, at the Domestic Violence Action Center. He leads statewide prevention and education efforts focused on healthy relationships, digital safety, and youth empowerment. Before joining DVAC, Jordan worked as an educator and advocate in several states, bringing a broad perspective on youth development and violence prevention. He holds a certification in advanced digital threat assessment and specializes in understanding how technology and online behaviors intersect with teen safety, exploitation, and human trafficking. Thanks, everyone, and thank you, Jordan. Oh, I just want to say, too, that this is being recorded. Sorry, Jordan. Go ahead.
Thanks, Diane. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for taking your lunchtime today to spend with me. I know a lot of you may only have lunchtime for a little downtime during the day, so feel free to just absorb, eat your lunch. I am going to ask for some participation at times just to enter things in the chat. I'd love to have your participation so you're not just listening to me talk for an hour, but no pressure if you just want to sit and eat your lunch. I am coming to you from Tennessee right now. I'm here taking care of my mom who just had surgery, and I'm a little stuffy. Every time I get on an airplane, somebody gives me some kind of germ. So if I have to sneeze or cough, I'll cut my camera off so you don't have to watch me blow a nose. But I'm here and I'm really excited. Thank you all for coming. So a little bit about the TAP program, TAP 808. We operate across all the islands in Hawaii, even though we're based in Honolulu. We do fly out to do our presentations all across the state. So if anything today resonates with you, you'd like to invite us, learn more, please feel free to reach out. Basically, what we do is we go around to schools, youth groups, athletic groups, colleges. We talk to youth about healthy relationships, dating violence, domestic violence, human trafficking. What should a healthy relationship look like? What are the red flags? If you are in a relationship, how do you get help? How do you help a friend? We also provide that one-on-one advocacy. So if someone needs help with an ongoing abusive relationship, maybe they need help filing a restraining order, or they need help with their school, figuring out how do I still keep going to school when this person who's abused me is at the same school and we don't want to see each other. We help navigate all of that, and our services are free and confidential to anyone 12 to 21. But we do also work with parents and caregivers and professionals like yourselves all along the way, anyone that needs help. So our contact info will be at the end. We'd love to hear from any of you. Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month is February. So if you're on our mailing list, you'll be seeing some things get blasted out. This is a really important topic. And some of the things we're going to talk about today is that exploitation exists on a spectrum. I think a lot of times we have this feeling, there's this myth that trafficking is like that Liam Neeson movie Taken, where somebody just gets kidnapped and we have to go to Europe to find them. That's generally not how it happens with teens. It really often begins online. Teens are really vulnerable in digital spaces. And we want to make sure that we're there helping to spread that accurate information so that these myths don't keep happening. We can prevent it a little. Some of our goals for today, what I want you to take away from this is we want you to recognize those digital red flags. We're going to talk about those along the way more than once because I really want them to sink in. And my lovely new employee, Mia, who I think is on here, helped me create this presentation. This was kind of her test for being on our staff. So I am really excited for you to see it. It's really great. She's also going to help me blast out to you all tomorrow a digital red flag for trafficking handout that you'll be able to take with you, and we're going to post on our social media. We really want you to understand these online recruitment tactics. The recruiting for youth has gone up and is continuing to rise. Um, I saw the recent statistics and I can't remember them off the top of my head, but they were very alarming. So we want to make sure that we all understand what these tactics are and how we respond to those with trauma-informed strategies. We're going to set a little bit of expectations. We don't want you to feel like you have to be like an investigator. And then we're going to focus on awareness, early identification, and response. So to start this off, I have to do the boring part of you just listening to me talk so I can give you all the definition. So Diane mentioned that I am certified in digital threat assessment. So what that is a really structured, prevention-focused approach to identifying risk, identifying who's vulnerable, and identifying when behaviors start to escalate so that we can prevent harm from occurring. So instead of looking at someone who has one really concerning post online, we look at their behavior online over time to try to establish their baseline and patterns in their behavioral changes, their access. Have they lost autonomy? This is not surveillance. All the information that we assess is all things that are publicly available. It's really a tool that we use to intervene and to offer support. When we're talking about online grooming, we're going to go through all the steps of these on a later slide, but it's when we move that deliberate process, not we, because we're not the people doing this. Let me rephrase that. When an individual moves the process of creating that emotional connection to exploit a young person into the online world. And that's what we're seeing a lot of. Digital coercion. This is probably one of the most common things that our TAP 808 program runs into. This is when technology is used to pressure, manipulate, or control somebody. And there's a lot of different ways that this shows up. And interestingly, a lot of these digital coercion tactics exactly mirror tactics that we see in abusive relationships between people, couples in an intimate partner violence situation. And then human trafficking. We're all here because we are interested in preventing this. It's just the use of force, fraud, or coercion to exploit a person for labor or commercial sex. Want to just mention that under federal law, for minors, force, fraud, or coercion does not need to be proven. It's trafficking if it's commercial sexual exploitation of a child, always. So this leads us into our first big learning topic, and that's the continuum of harm. So when we talk about human trafficking, it's really important to understand that it's not like that Liam Neeson movie all the time. Most often, it develops along a continuum of harm. So we're going to start with the connection, and this is where we see a lot of the digital access start. Because young people are chronically online. I'm not even a young person anymore. I am chronically online. Um, Out here in the middle of nowhere in Tennessee, our internet is a little bit slower, and I've been like, oh my gosh, Instagram takes so long to load, and I have to check myself a little bit. So that connection is a lot easier when you have easier access to people. For teens, this feels really affirming when they get the connection. A lot of them feel really isolated if you remember what it was like to be a teen. This might look like somebody reaching out to them online, giving them attention, validating their feelings. And that takes us into this manipulation and isolation, which is where the grooming really starts. This is that process of building trust and emotional resilience over time. One red flag that we look for in the TAP program with relationships that might be abusive or toxic and heading the abusive direction is how quickly a relationship gets serious. Some people, my parents were this way. They met 2 weeks later, they were dating. It was love at first sight. They were married until that's just how it's been. However, that is frequently used as a control tool, getting a relationship to get serious very quickly. The more layers you add, the harder it is to escape. So we're going to be looking for that. Online, things move very quickly, especially when we have constant access. We're not building those connections anymore by going out on a date every Friday for 3 hours over 6 months. It's constant access. That can lead us up to the isolation. Someone is becoming very emotionally dependent on this one person, and it's pulling them away from everyone else in their lives. And that leads into the exploitation, which I'm going to go into deeper later. At this stage, when we've reached exploitation, a lot of teens still feel like they have chosen to be in this relationship, even though they've been manipulated through this whole scenario, which adds a little extra difficulty. And then for some youth, that's going to escalate into trafficking. So, what I really want to emphasize with this, I know that was a really quick overview, but I promise we're going to go into it deeper. What I want to emphasize is that each of these stages builds upon the last one. And if we only intervene once we've hit the trafficking step, we've missed a couple opportunities to provide that prevention and support. So, with digital threat assessment, that really helps us identify where a young person might be on this continuum and to respond before that harm escalates. So, I'm going to lead you through a quick little case study to highlight some of these points. Not anything that you have to, remember everything about. I'm going to ask you one question at the end in the chat if you would like to participate, but I promise you don't have to remember a whole lot. This is just one of those pay attention kind of things. Before we get there, I have 3 quick notes. With the continuum of harm is escalating over time. There is an escalation. Digital spaces allow for more discrete escalation. And early intervention helps. So here's our case study. It's all anonymized. So we have a 15-year-old student who begins spending more time on a social media platform where she posts short videos and interacts with others through her comments and her direct messages. At the time, she was experiencing some conflict at home between her parents and had recently moved and changed schools, which left her feeling very isolated and disconnected. An individual reached out through direct messages, initially commenting on her posts and offering encouragement. The messages were supportive, validating, and consistent. Things like, "You seem really mature, and I get why you feel misunderstood." Over time, oh, sorry, my screen just popped away. Okay, there we go. I knew there'd be a tech hiccup somewhere along the way. Over time, the conversations became more frequent and more personal. The individual asked detailed questions about her family, school, friendships, and romantic experiences. They framed themselves as the only person who truly understood her. The individual encouraged secrecy, saying things like, "People are too judgmental. This should stay between us," and discouraged her from sharing their conversations with anyone else. Eventually, the tone of the conversations shifted, and the person began complimenting her appearance more intensely and introduced sexualized language. Requests for photos were framed as voluntary, with things like "only if you're comfortable," but if she hesitated, were repeated. When she did send images, the request escalated in frequency and explicitness. After receiving images, the individual's behavior significantly changed. They began threatening to share the images with her school and family if she didn't comply with further demands. The teen reported feeling panicked and trapped, but also ashamed and afraid to tell anyone. At this stage, the teen's compliance was driven by fear, not consent. As the coercion continued, the individual began directing her to interact with other people online and discuss meeting in person. By the time the teen disclosed to a trusted adult, the trafficker already had significant leverage and control. So my question to you all, if you want to answer in the chat, just a couple quick words, is at what point in this case do you think intervention would have made a difference? Give you a moment to think about that. Okay. Isolation, monitor from the beginning of digital use. As soon as she was spending time online on the platform, make sure to keep her connected. At the very beginning, these are all great, and you're all right. What I want you to take away from this is that almost all trafficking cases present with multiple opportunities for prevention if we know what to look for. So we're going to get into those red flags soon. Teens are especially vulnerable, but I want to be very clear that when we're talking about this vulnerability, we're not talking about poor decision making or lack of intelligence. That sometimes does play a part. We all make bad decisions. But when we're talking about vulnerable teens, we're really talking about their adolescent brain development. And I have a sticky note on my computer to not be a nerd and talk about neuroscience with you for an hour because I absolutely could. If you guys ever want to chat with that, please call my office. I love it so much. I'm just going to give you a little bit. These developmental stages are really important, and a lot of this is really misunderstood. During adolescence, the brain is not finished baking yet. It is still a little doughy in the middle, and especially right here in the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is a part of our brain that deals with judgment, which teens don't have very much, impulse control, which they definitely don't have, and weighing long-term consequences, which even a lot of adults struggle with. At the same time, their limbic system, which is where all our emotion and our social connection and our reward system is, really overactive. So, what this means when we put these two things together is that teenagers are neurologically wired to seek novelty and reward. They want new things, they want to try new things, and they want that dopamine hit from doing something that feels good. They're going to prioritize peer approval over adults. This is that time when, in everyone's life, if you have youth around you, they start to pull away from the family and they want to be with their friends all the time. And they respond really strongly to emotional stimuli, things that elicit some kind of emotion. When we add in digital spaces, feedback on the internet is immediate and constant. This imbalance really significantly affects their decision making. I can't post this picture right now because immediately 300 people are going to see it and they're going to comment on it. Do want to say though, this doesn't mean that they don't understand rules or consequences. It just means that emotion often overrides logic in the moment. Because their brain is wired for this social connection, I'm just going to put all this up. Attention and affirmation online can feel incredibly powerful. And that's exactly what traffickers and exploiters are looking for. Teens may understand that something is risky intellectually, but they feel really overconfident that they can manage it. If you've ever been around a teenager, they think they're invincible all the time. I live 4 houses from Kalaheo High School, and I'm always like, oh my gosh, these kids just walk across the street. Nobody checks the crosswalk. They ride their bikes so fast. Crazy. Couldn't be me. I'm too old. I know I'll be broken. Teens understand the risk, but they think they can manage it. Okay, if you're willing, I'm going to pause for just a second and make this a little interactive if you want to share something in the chat. I want you to think back to when you were a teenager. What is one thing you remember prioritizing, even when an adult warned you about the risks of that? Could be something maybe you didn't want your parents to know about. For me, everybody in my family smoked cigarettes. And I was like, I want to do that. That's so cool. But they would all be like, no, don't do this. This is so gross. And I probably tried to smoke 10 different times and it never stuck with me, thankfully. But I remember wanting to do that so bad, even though I knew how hard it was going to be on my body. Didn't make any sense, but that's kind of how teenagers go. So let me know if there's anything from your time as a teen that you can think of that you really prioritized, even though you were warned about it. I knew the meaning of life. I was on Panic at the Disco fan sites. Cliff jumping at the lake. Yep. Sneaking out at night to meet up with friends. I would sneak out of the house to hang out at the park with friends and smoke cigarettes. Thank you all for sharing your childhoods. What you're all naming here is what we see reflected in adolescent brain development. It's not that teens are ignoring risk, they're prioritizing connection, belonging, and identity. When we understand this a little bit, we can move away from blaming and towards supporting and educating. So that's going to lead us into my next question for all of you, which is what platform or app do you see the youth around you using most frequently? Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Roblox, that's a good one. YouTube, yep, absolutely. What's important here is that no matter what app we name, because all of those are correct, how consistently youth are engaging there without any adult awareness is where this recruitment is going to start to happen. And this is something that can be a little scary. And I want to tell you that this is not coming as like you should be afraid. Part of what TAP can do is we can walk you through steps to make sure that you know what you're doing with safety online. We're going to start hopefully in the next month. In February, we're going to be launching a free online series about keeping your children safe online that will be free and open to parents and caregivers. And I'll be sure to post information about that when we're totally finished with it. But these apps that you see here, we have TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Reddit, and then I think that's WhatsApp. These platforms are really common entry points because they combine public visibility with private messaging. You can post publicly and privately message on those, except WhatsApp, that's a messaging one. So what happens here where this recruitment is happening is that traffickers are observing their posts, identifying what they're vulnerable about, and then initiating contact through those comments and messages. And something that we can really help if you ever encounter something like this is we can help identify healthy but maybe kind of weird relationship versus grooming. So I have Facebook and I only keep it because I'm from the East Coast and all my family is there. And no matter what I post, picture of what I ate for lunch, picture of my dog, picture of me at the beach, all of my aunties will gas me up on it. It'll be like, oh, you look so good. I'm so proud of you. You're doing so great. We support you. That's just aunties being aunties. Now, if that was coming from a 45-year-old man I'd never met and I was a 14-year-old girl, we're going to investigate that a little more. So we can help with those assessments if you ever need to call us for that. Snapchat in particular is often used because the messages disappear. That kind of reduces the evidence, unfortunately. Getting a little better because Snapchat snitches now. So if someone takes like a screenshot or tries to download a photograph to their phone, it will tell the other person, but it doesn't remove it. Someone mentioned Roblox earlier, and Roblox is very important. Roblox has become my least favorite thing in the whole world because this is where so much grooming is happening, and not just grooming for human trafficking, grooming for domestic terrorism groups. There are groups that kind of coerce kids to self-harm and they stream it and sell that as well. Roblox is very, very intense right now. So there isn't one particular app. Yes, 764, Diane, 764. Yep. We can help with all of these, but things like Roblox and Fortnite, a lot of times parents think, oh, that's probably okay because I know my children are playing online with their friends, which does happen. But without any kind of education about this, it's really easy to get contacted by total strangers. It also uses Discord a lot, which I wasn't super familiar with. It's often used for people who game online and stream their gaming, but it has started to function as like a private communication hub. So we want to be really particular with that. In 2024, December of 2024, there were several people who came through working with TAP 808 that had met a trafficker through Discord on the other side of Oahu. So it moves really quickly. What we want to look for here is a key red flag, big red flag for you, for the youth in your life, is what we call migration. So if someone is posting and they're commenting on somebody's Instagram posts and their TikTok videos, and now all of a sudden those people are communicating with the youth in a more private forum like WhatsApp or Signal, that's a big red flag that we've taken the conversation completely privately on a totally separate app. We will see traffickers present themselves as fans. Oh, you're so great. I love what you're doing. Sometimes as mentors, sometimes as supporters. There's always a power imbalance, and that's what we want to look out for. They always blend in, and there's really no single dangerous app. They're all dangerous. Teens just tend to use some more than others. So when we think about how these traffickers target the youth, it's important to shift away from the idea that they're looking for certain types of kids. There isn't a certain type that they're looking for. In reality, traffickers are looking for opportunity. And what they're looking for almost all the time is unmet needs with teens. Many teens are experiencing this emotional vulnerability that leads them, again, because their brains aren't baked all the way, they're still undone, looking for connection. We all want connection. So youth who feel really lonely or misunderstood or unsupported are especially vulnerable to somebody who's giving them attention, validation, and emotional support. Traffickers will position themselves as the one person who truly understands and cares what this kid is going through. We also see youth who have real financial stress, unfortunately, like housing instability. The rate of unhoused minors in Hawaii is very high. I believe we're still in the top 5 of the states in the United States for unhoused youth. A lot of times we also see teens who are expected to contribute financially at home, and that adds a lot of stress. I would not have made it as a teen today with all the social media and everything. I don't think I would have made it. I would have been like, Mom, please homeschool me. I don't want to deal with this no more. It's very stressful to be a teen now, and we're adding these other things in. There's someone there looking at that opportunity. And traffickers may offer money, they may offer gifts. Increasingly, they offer opportunities. I've had 2 cases come across my desk in the last probably 6 months where it was an older gentleman pretending to be a photographer for a modeling agency and finding young girls that he thought were attractive and reaching out to them saying, oh, I can help you with modeling. That's a really common ruse. But over time, these quote unquote supports become tools of control. Some youth have this family conflict or they just want to escape. They want to get out of these unstable environments. And traffickers may offer them a sense of security or stability or a place to escape, even if it's online. And something I want to mention here is when we look at types of kids, there was a really great metadata study done maybe last year through Pauhana Onawahine about missing and murdered Native Hawaiian girls, women, and Mahu. And it's very eye-opening to see the statistics for that. We also see a really high rate of exploitation happening for youth that are dealing with their identity in some way. Cultural identity, gender identity, sexual orientation, any kind of marginalization, that adds another layer of vulnerability that is an opportunity for these traffickers. What they're looking for is a youth asking for help. And unfortunately, a lot of youth are chronic oversharers. And I say that as pot calling the kettle black. If you ask anybody who works with me, I've never had a secret in my life. I chronically overshare everything at work. And one of my team members is like very private and just doesn't ever even think to share anything from their life. And I'm always like, tell me some stuff. I need to know about you. Like, here's everything I ate for the last 5 days. People do that online. I'm guilty of that online. I took my mom's very small 7-pound chihuahua to Starbucks this morning. to get a pup cup and I immediately Instagrammed it. This really does create a place for people who are going to try to exploit youth to know what's going on. They're really looking for them to ask about, I need help with something. So now let's look at these red flags a little, these tactics that we're going to see. Again, most common, most effective is excessive attention. And this often doesn't look harmful at first. And I could take this slide and plug it into our Teen Dating Violence 101 presentation for TAP, and it would be the same because how a lot of these tactics start and how abusive relationships start, they mirror each other. We call this love bombing. It's when right at the beginning of a relationship, there's just all of this love and attention and sometimes gifts and money. This might be frequent messages, constant check-ins, really intense praise that might be really kind of disproportionate to the length or depth of the relationship. And this gets a little tricky with teens because everything to a teenager is the most intense and important thing that's ever happened in their whole life. So we have to ask them probing questions about this. But for a teen who's really seeking connection and validation, this feels really meaningful. But this is not about affection. My aunties are saying nice things to me to gas me up online because one, they're really bored. They're all retired now and they need something to do. And we have a great relationship. With this is about creating dependency. The individual is going to position themselves to be the most important person in that teen's life, which is going to start to subtly discourage any outside connections and start that isolation. This lays the groundwork for all these later stages. So from a digital threat assessment standpoint, the things that we're going to look for to raise concern are really rapid emotional intensity. We've gone from, I commented on one of your pictures because I thought you were pretty, to I'm the only one who understands you. You can only talk to me. When any kind of communication goes from mixed online and in person to the only communication that's really happening is online. It's replace our offline relationships. One of the very first things that parents and caregivers do when they find out something like this is to take the phone away. If there's a lot of distress, like significant distress, when that contact is interrupted, that can be a big red flag. Now, I know most teens are going to freak out if you take their phone away. I have to get a new phone this week and I'm freaking out about it already. And I'm not even losing anything. I just have to get a new phone. I have to sign into everything all over again. And I know it's going to be really frustrating. It's okay to feel a normal amount of panic, but this is like we're going to drive around through Pahoa and we might lose service for 20 minutes or so, and they're panicking about it. And when there's pressure to prioritize one relationship online over all others, those are really big red flags to us. What we see as the next step in our continuum of harm is boundary testing. Once that love bombing has established that emotional dependence, the traffickers, offenders are going to begin testing boundaries. They're going to gradually push limits to see what the young person will tolerate, which is what a lot of teenagers do with boundaries in their lives in general. This mostly begins with things that are really minor or seem reasonable, like personal questions. Tell me about your family. Tell me about your mom. What do you want to be when you grow up? What was the name of your dog that just passed? Do you want to get another dog? Just minor question. They're going to get more private though. And what the traffickers are doing is testing what will be tolerated by that young person or what they're going to kind of like freak out about. They're often framed as really caring. Only do this if you're comfortable. I don't want to push you. But if the teen were to hesitate, that request is going to get repeated and reframed in some way that applies pressure. The point of this is to make it seem normal. The normalization is key for testing boundaries. And our indicators for this, our red flags for threat assessment, is that requests are escalating over time, escalating both in frequency and escalating in severity. Going from asking, what's your mom's name to What size bra do you wear? Anytime discomfort is minimized or reframed, kind of gaslighting, that's a red flag for us. And if we notice, and sometimes this happens in the comments of like Instagram posts, that initially the youth might be kind of resistant, but over time they start to comply more. That can be a red flag for us too, that they're kind of being coerced. Once the boundaries have been tested, there's us versus them. This is a really powerful grooming tactic that really kind of finalizes the isolation. This individual is positioning themselves as like the only person that understands, the only person that supports the teen. They're discrediting parents, teachers, peers. What we hear often is they're just trying to control you, or they're all judging you. They don't understand. I'm the only one who understands. I'm the only one who gets it. What this does is it encourages the teen to withdraw from all their other relationships. So, with this, what we're looking for our indicators are withdrawal from all their trusted supports. And usually there's some withdrawal of things that they liked. So, for example, say they play soccer and they love soccer and they've always been on a soccer team. And now that this new person online is in their life, they don't want to go to soccer practice anymore and they want to drop off the team and they're not talking to their teammates. That's a huge red flag. And we're looking for increased emotional reliance on just one person, just this online person. And like I said earlier, this mirrors almost exactly how abusive relationships that are very coercive with intimate partner violence start. Their trust is being weaponized against them. And that leads us to the clearest indicator, which is secrecy. An individual might encourage secrecy by saying something like, they're not going to understand. If your mom finds out that you're talking to me, she's going to overreact. It's going to ruin our friendship. Let's keep this between us. Your parents don't get it. They can be framed as protective and caring, but in reality, it's just isolating the teen and removing the protective adults from the picture. What we're looking for with this is any explicit request for secrecy. And again, movement to a private platform, and that the reasoning for not telling anyone is always fear-based. They're going to overreact. You'll get in trouble. That's generally how the secrecy pops up. This leads us to something that has become so common in the work that we do, which is sextortion and digital coercion. And we see this a lot in intimate partner relationships. And it's becoming much more common anecdotally in the work we do at TAP, where a lot of young women are now using digital coercion against young men or extorting them. It's a little easier, I think, with access online. I haven't done any actual research and studies, but we've had a lot more cases with male survivors in the last year than we have in the past. Maybe they're just more comfortable coming forward to us now, but we've really seen a big increase in these kinds of cases. So with sextortion and digital coercion, this is where that manipulation has shifted to control. So sextortion occurs when somebody threatens to share intimate images, videos, or information unless the person complies with some demand. There was a big scam going around a couple years ago where you would get like an email or a voicemail and somebody would say, "Oh, I've hacked your computer. I know all the pornographic websites that you've been on, and if you don't give me money, I'm going to release them to your whole family." This is kind of that same thing, but not a scammer. For teens, this usually happens after grooming has already taken place because that trust has already been built and boundaries have already been kind of eroded away. There's two types of this that commonly pop up for teenagers. The first one is that really explicit threat. If you don't do what I'm saying, I'm going to send these to people. But there's also a really like kind of cruel, it's all cruel, kind of implied way where they'll say, You don't want people finding out that I have these photos. It's the same threat, it's just not as explicit. At this stage, this is all fear-based. There's no more consent in this picture. And this really works because it targets what teens fear the most, which is humiliation. Teenagers are so afraid of being embarrassed. The adolescent brain is so sensitive to social threats and to rejection. These threats feel so overwhelming and so immediate. Nobody wants to be, I'm the kid at school that everybody saw my nudes. When we talk to teens about this, and we have done some research about this, about why they feel like they can't disclose, they say there's no safe way to do it without all these consequences happening. Same thing with digital coercion. That's, again, threats to expose information or images, and they might not always be um, sex related. We had a case, still an ongoing case, where a young woman had a video of a student athlete at a college on the island that was drinking, and a condition of his scholarship in the athletic department was that he not consume alcohol. He was also underage, which is a crime. And she was using that to threaten taking away his scholarship and getting him in trouble. Um, Tracking, oh my gosh, you guys, tracking is so easy nowadays. You can buy a GPS tracker with about a 2-week battery on Amazon for less than $50, and they'll ship it right to your house. We've taken trackers from crazy places, and it's so easy to track on phones now. That's really common, is that monitoring of all the location data. This is something that continuously happens. It's not just a one-time thing. And this coercion kind of takes away the options that teens might have. They don't know where to go because now they're being monitored all the time. So some things we want you to look for with the indicators for digital coercion and sextortion is sudden extreme distress or panic. If that's not something that youth has had a lot before, because a lot of people have anxiety, but this is like super sudden. If they're obsessively monitoring their messages or their devices, they can't put their phone down and go to the restroom. They have to take it with them. Any anytime that something like this comes up, there's just huge fear of any consequences. We really want to look for those. And I want to just say that this is not about poor decisions. It's about manipulation, fear, and power. We always want to put the onus, I guess, on the adult, the trafficker in this case, and not the teen who has made a poor decision. When it gets to this point, almost all the time, they haven't complied with this because they want to. It's because they feel like they have no other option. This is technology as control. We briefly talked about this, but again, this really mirrors intimate partner violence. Location traffic, a lot of times we hear traffickers say, I just want to know you're safe. And I always tell the kids, you already have at least one dad in your life. You don't need to add a whole nother one. If somebody becomes upset when location sharing is turned off, that's about control if you're not their parent. We see a lot of account monitoring. That's like somebody's demanding access to passwords. They're checking messages. They're controlling social media accounts. They're deleting contacts, responding on the teen's behalf, or unfollowing people that they don't want them to follow. And a lot of times that shows up as, well, I trust you. I just don't trust other guys looking at you, or I don't trust what other girls might DM you. Constant access is the expectation that the teen is always available. And any delayed responses might be met with anger or guilt. Oh, am I not important enough to you that you couldn't answer me? Or accusations of cheating. And over time, that creates hypervigilance and anxiety in teens. And then again, we have the isolation. So some digital red flags, and this is what we're going to send you all as a handout. later on. Um, we really want to look for sudden secrecy. And this is not to say that I'm giving you the advice that you should monitor everything that your kids do. You get to make that determination for yourself. But sudden secrecy is really, really important. It's a huge red flag. If the youth has new contacts, new people that they're talking to that are older, significantly older, if they are getting any unexplained money or gifts that they won't tell you where it came from, or when they do tell you, the math doesn't math, and you're like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. Or big behavioral changes. Teens have behavioral changes, they're teenagers. But this is outside of the realm of what we would normally see. Withdrawing, um, acting completely different, hair has changed, clothing has changed. Always trust your instincts on this. It's better to be wrong than to just let it go and not address it at all. So now that you've been listening to me talk for like 25 minutes now, in the chat, what was one thing as a teenager that you absolutely did not want adults to know about? If you're comfortable sharing that, I will tell you a fun story. I grew up on a farm, and I once accidentally, because I didn't know what I was doing, took my dad's new tractor out and hit a cow with it. And the cow, unfortunately, did not make it. But there were no visible wounds on the body. I think I just hit it in the head the wrong way, and it just like was done. And I never told my dad about that. Ever, ever. He can never know. Um, I was like, I'm going to be in so much trouble. Kind of think back, is there something as a teen I didn't want my family to know about? It's okay. I said I wasn't going to force you to participate, and I won't. But this is what teens say. They're afraid of punishment. They're afraid of losing access. I mentioned earlier, not having access to your phone is stressful. They're really afraid of shame, and they're really afraid of not being believed. Youth fear adults' reactions more than they fear the consequences of what they're doing. So, how do we respond? If there's a disclosure, our message matters just as much as what happened to them. We always want to focus on support. So, this is the new best response, best practice. That's what I was trying to say. Best practice for what to do. You always believe. The first and the most important step is belief. There is this pervasive myth that, oh, they lie a lot. Teens lie. It happens. We all lie. But we want to believe them and validate. Disclosures are often fragmented, especially when there's a lot of trauma. They might seem a little inconsistent, and that's not because the young person is being untruthful, but it's because trauma impacts memory, language, and emotional regulation. This doesn't mean conducting an investigation or having all the answers. It simply means saying, I hear you, and I take this seriously. This might sound like, I'm really glad you told me. We're going to avoid blame, saying things like, this is not your fault. Anyone in this situation would feel so overwhelmed. And we're always going to prioritize safety. And safety planning should be collaborative and age appropriate. But we want to avoid rushing to make a decision without the young person's input because they've already had their control taken away. So what do we say instead? I'm glad you told me. This is not your fault, and you're not alone. From here, we go through reporting and resources, and here are just some. And I'm almost finished, I promise, but we're going to give you TAPS information, and you're always welcome to call us. We have our own cell phone line. You can text, you can call. These are also some resources. We want to explain options and avoid force, which is not always possible. With the way our legal system is, and most of us are mandated reporters, there are some situations where, as much as the team may want us to go a certain way, our hands might be tied. But it's important to explain that and be as collaborative as possible. Prevention starts early, and that's what we want to focus on. You want to normalize discussions about online behavior, and this is going to be what TAP is going to launch hopefully soon. We want to build skills before a crisis. So you need to have conversations, not just there are scary people online, but there are scary people online, and this is what it looks like. And we want to identify some trusted adults. We want to focus on empowerment over fear whenever possible, focusing on education over scare tactics and communication over control. And we're going to help you with this in our new series coming out soon. So before I pop up with my survey and take any questions if anyone has any, if you had a message about this topic to share with youth, what message would you want them to hear? And while you type that, I'm going to put this up here. This is just a quick survey that helps us with our grant funding. And Diane is really great about following up with an email. So I'll also send her an actual link you can click so you don't have to try to scan this with your phone right now. It's just a few short questions. It just helps us to make sure that we keep getting money to do this work from the government who needs to know our business all the time. But if you can do that, that would be awesome. It is anonymous, unless you say that you want to sign up for our email list, and then it will put your email along with your submission. So if you're going to do that, only say nice things. And thank you so much for your time. Here is my work email and also the TAP email and our phone number. You can reach out to us. One of the three people on my team has access to the phone and the email. We alternate with it, and sometimes we have really bad boundaries, and we're all three doing it at the same time. So feel free to reach out to us anytime you might have questions. If you want us to come and do a presentation, we are always willing to do that. And thank you for listening to me talk at you for the last 50 minutes.
Thank you, Jordan. That was very much needed presentation. Very much appreciated. We'd like to open the space for questions. If anyone has questions, you can unmute or put them in the chat. Lots of love. Jordan, lots of love in the chat. Okay, while everyone is potentially thinking of a question to ask Jordan, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today, being here with us and listening to what Jordan had to share with all of us. Also want to thank Jordan for spending his time with us from the East Coast and under the weather. So, Jordan, you're a champ, and we appreciate you hanging in there and presenting. I'd also like to let everyone know that the January 6th presentation of Preventing Off and Online Exploitation has been moved to January 23rd. And when I send out the email today or tomorrow to you guys after this presentation, I'll be sure to share that link as well. Tomorrow, our Lunch and Learn will be by the Sex Abuse Treatment Center, and they'll be speaking on the Lincoln Crossing between teen dating violence and sex trafficking. And finally, our annual sign waving event is this Wednesday, January 14th, bright and early in the morning from 7:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. on the sidewalk fronting the state capitol on South Beretania Street. So did anyone come up with any questions for Jordan? Anybody have any questions in general? Okay, thank you again for being here. We hope to see you at other Lunch and Learn presentations and potentially at sign waving. Very much appreciate you sharing this space with us today. And huge thanks to Jordan. Thank you all. Ahoy ho.